Oh, what a crazy week 11 it was. Josh Allen finally got over the Bills hump. The Seahawks finally got over the 49ers hump. Well, there's a little bit of controversy to discuss there. And oh, ho hum, the Steelers won another game where Russell Wilson did absolutely nothing. We'll talk about all of it on the gold standard NFL show that we still don't have a name for, Levin.
No, we do not.
I blame you. Otherwise, it would be my fault.
Yes, I mean, I am the creative one on this network, and nothing happens without me on this network.
Right. All right. We are under a bit of a time crunch here, so let's dive into it right away. We have to start with the game of the week. No question about it. Chiefs, Bills. It was the one game everybody wanted to watch going in, and it absolutely lived up to the billing.
Yep. And Josh Allen, we'll see. This might be the season that you finally get to crown him.
He is playing at an absolute another level, just an otherworldly level. I never understood why he got all the criticism that he got. I know he turns the ball over some, but he makes so many damn good plays. He more than makes up for it. And in the playoffs, he even has less turnovers and more touchdowns. He's incredible. And I was happy for him. And I'm not going to hide my bias. I was happy to see the Chiefs lose.
Yeah. And we should say Patrick Mahomes is also playing at a different level. A much worse level than he's ever played before.
Like we got to be able to call it now. You got to be able to say Patrick Mahomes is not having a good year. He's still a fantastic quarterback, but he was 23 of 33 for 196 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions in this game. One of the interceptions was comically bad where he just lobbed it over the middle of the field and it was picked off. He's a great quarterback, already a Hall of Famer, one of the all-time greats. This year, he's not playing up to the level that he himself has set. It's
kind of starkly fascinating and at the same time shocking how bad he is. It's not all on him. I mean, he has maybe the worst supporting cast on offense of anybody in the league.
Yep.
Yes, he has Kelsey. Kelsey is not dominant anymore. He's still a good tight end, but he's a good receiving option for a tight end. They do not have a wide receiver with Rice hurt. Their running back is literally somebody that they cast away years ago and they had to bring back off the street. He doesn't have much of a supporting cast, but even with that, I think we can all agree that a quarterback that is playing at a high level does not have the statistics that Mahomes has. They have been able to win games. That is a credit to their defense, and that is a credit to how good Mahomes is when he needs that one drive.
Yes.
But he's needed that one drive because the defense has been carrying them.
And I'm just going to throw this out there because once again, so the Bills score a touchdown to make it 23-21. They desperately need a stop on defense. And Josh Allen goes down, scores a touchdown to make it 30-21. And this is like the third week in a row where the Chiefs have needed a stop and they have not been able to get it. Last week against the Broncos, Denver goes down and they're setting up for the winning field goal. Now, the special teams blocked the kick, but the defense let them get down there. That is not something we've seen from Steve Spagnuolo. And the week before, Baker Mayfield went down and stuck it in the end zone without his 2 starting wide receivers. Again, Steve Spagnuolo is the greatest defensive coordinator of all time. But in the past 3 weeks, this Chiefs defense, I think, has shown some cracks. And maybe that's my bias again because they've hurt me deeply. But I'm just saying that's not something we usually see out of this Chiefs defense.
I get what you're saying. They are being kind of left high and dry by the offense, though. So fair. You can expect them to give up some drives, but they have been giving up drives in clutch time, which is what you're getting at. And that is different. Well, I guess I say that, but, Brock Purdy, our bias in the Super Bowl, did lead back-to-back-to-back scoring drives to tie or take the lead in the Super Bowl. So the defense was giving it up then. But this defense can be better, but the offense is they're not going to win the Super Bowl with the way they play. They are, look, your record is great, but they are not that good of a team. They will get knocked off if this offense plays like this by the Bills or the Ravens or the Steelers or one of the other teams.
The problem is there's like the road to the Super Bowl in the AFC is unbelievable. I don't know in my lifetime I can think of a more difficult playoff field than what AFC teams are going to have to go through to win the Super Bowl. Like, all the Super Bowls count the same, but if you're in the AFC and you win the Super Bowl this year, I almost feel like you should get like 2 trophies. Like, it's going to be so damn hard. Congratulations to the Buffalo Bills. They get the win. Let's go ahead to Sunday Night Football 11, because this was another amazing game. Our old friend Jim Harbaugh, the Chargers are controlling the game. And Justin Herbert comes out and he is firing, man. And the Chargers go into halftime up 24-6. In the third quarter, they add on a field goal to make it 27-6. And then all of a sudden, Joe Burrow wakes up and Cincinnati comes all the way back to tie the score at 27 with over 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. And it's like, the Chargers are charging again.
The Chargers were charging again, but this is the difference. They won this game. This is a game that they have dropped. It is comical how many different coaches they've had and how many times they've reworked that roster, and yet they were still charging. And if you've watched the NFL at any point in the last 25 years, you know what that means. It means games that you have no business losing, you lose. I remember they are still the only example that I personally witnessed of a team being in victory formation and losing because they fumbled the snap and then allowed the score. That is the Chargers' history. That happened with Phillip Rivers, of all people. Somebody that will probably end up in the Hall of Fame at some point.
It's close.
This Chargers team has every hallmark of a Harbaugh team. And the hallmark of Harbaugh teams with the 49ers was you did not want to face them in the playoffs.
They are physical. This game, Cincinnati put up 27, but I think going into the game, they'd only allowed like 13 points per game on defense. Their defense was playing incredible. And what hurt Cincinnati, special teams mishaps. They tie it at 27. The Chargers go 4 and out. Cincinnati gets the ball, 10 plays, 56 yards. They go right down the field. They set up for a 48-yard field goal. Evan McPherson misses. Chargers get the ball back. They go backwards 4 yards in 3 plays. Cincinnati gets the ball, 9 plays, 46 yards. Evan McPherson, 51-yard field goal, misses it. That's 2 empty possessions for the Chargers where you had an opportunity to take the lead, and you got 0 points. Chargers punt, Cincinnati punts. And then Justin Herbert gets the ball at the Chargers' 16-yard line, goes 84 yards in 4 plays. They stick it into the end zone, and that's all she wrote.
I love the sound effects, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, the Chargers, this is a game that should have won by double digits. It got close late, and maybe they learned a lesson there. But the simple fact is this is a team that is on their way to the playoffs as a wild card team, barring a collapse.
Yeah.
And oh, by the way, that AFC West is stacked and going to be stacked for years to come, because you have Mahomes, obviously. You have the Chargers, who we mentioned, but you also have the Broncos. And boy, does Nick's look like somebody that's going to be for real and really kind of rise that Broncos team. Yeah, you have a 4th team there, but the Raiders are going to Raiders.
All right. Well, then do you want to we'll skip right to the Denver game then. We can talk about that. They absolutely laid waste to the Atlanta Falcons, 34-6. And it's like you said, all of a sudden, Bo Nix, you go look recently, his last 4 or 5 games, you're like, holy crap, they may have something here.
Yeah, he's been on fire. I think he had 4 touchdowns in yesterday's game. Atlanta is reeling. They're falling apart. You know, they had a rough first game or two, and then they had that great middle part, and then lately their defense has been giving up a ton of points. And this is the first time in Kirk Cousins' career that he's gone back-to-back games without a single touchdown. The Falcons are reeling. The Broncos are looking like a team that is going to challenge that AFC West for years to come, because they have their young quarterback and they have an established coach who can get the job done.
And we even got to see, little Michael Penix Jr. yesterday. That's how bad things were for the Falcons. They sat Kirk Cousins down. Bo Nix, impressive. And, the hope, if you're a Bronco fan, is You've got Sean Payton there. He, supposedly knows quarterbacks and is a quarterback guy, and he took a little time to adapt. And his last 4 games, Bo Nix has averaged 257 passing yards, and he has 11 touchdowns. Maybe putting himself in position to win Rookie of the Year. Who knows?
The Rookie of the Year this year, I mean, there's going to be some people up for it, but I would say at this point, he's, if not the leader, going to become the heavy favorite. The Broncos, you might have 3 playoff teams make the playoffs out of the AFC West.
Denver they're in Vegas next week to take on the Raiders, and then they play the Browns and the Colts. They could easily win all 3 of those games. Then they finish up, unfortunately for them, with the Chargers, Bengals, and Chiefs, 2 of those 3 on the road to end the year. So it's going to be tough last 3 games, but they have a chance, the Broncos, to definitely put themselves in position to be a wild card in the AFC.
Yeah, they win the next 3, then they likely only need one of the last 3 to get into the playoffs. They are in good position, put it this way. And if they win the next 3, the confidence that team's going to have, they could run the table. Like, that's not out of the question. I don't think they do it, but if you got a young team with a coach that's establishing his mark with that team, if they continue to win and get those 3 wins, they're on a winning streak. They are going to be, I'm not going to say riding high, because that's usually got a negative connection where you fall, but they're going to be kind of in their groove, in the zone. They could end up winning those last 3. They'll probably end up losing one of them, but this is a team that very well might be playing into late January.
I don't know that I'm going to go that far, but I will say that they have been impressive recently, and we'll see. We will find out. It all will be revealed, so we say. Let's move on now to Steelers-Ravens. This was another. I'm old enough to remember Ravens-Steelers, James Harrison, Troy Polamalu, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown. Those great, great games back in the day. This one felt like that. 18-16, not exactly an offensive, shootout here. The Steelers win again, Levin, without scoring an offensive touchdown.
I told you the Steelers have the best defense in the league. They shut down Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson did not have 150 yards late in that game. I think he ended up just crossing it, having over 150
on the game.
Yeah. He had a drive in the fourth quarter that he got a bunch of yards. But they were dominating that game defensively. It was close because their offense is their limiting factor, but the offense has enough explosiveness because, 1, they can run the ball, and 2, you can throw a jump ball 50 yards down the field and have a decent chance Pickens does something amazing and catches the ball. He probably has the largest catch radius in the NFL right now.
His contested catch ability it's right up there with anybody you want to put in the NFL right now. It's absolutely incredible. And this has got to hurt for Ravens fans because it's a game you lost by 2 points and Justin Tucker missed 2 field goals. Justin Tucker, I don't know if he's just cooked now because he's older or what, but he has not just been like, oh, he's not Justin Tucker. He's been bad this year, just flat bad as a kicker. And that's horrible because it's a division game, obviously. It's going to be close. Those things matter. And he missed field goals on back-to-back possessions.
The division is probably out of the question now for the Ravens. The Ravens are looking at a wild card team. They are 2 games back, and they just lost to the Steelers. So there's a good chance they end up losing the tiebreaker to the Steelers. They need basically the Steelers to lose a bunch of games, and I think the Steelers are good enough that the Steelers are probably going to be a 13-4 team, or at worst 12-5. And if they're at 12-5, that means the Ravens need to likely run the table to get that division. I don't see that happening.
Well, here's the weird thing about the Steelers. This was their first division game all season, which is crazy because it's week 11.
They have a really weird schedule. Trust me, they play so many division games at the end. They play on Christmas Day.
So they're in Cleveland next week. Then they're in Cincinnati. Then they play Cleveland at home. Then they go to Philly. Then they go to Baltimore. Then they go to then they play Kansas City, and then they play Cincinnati. So almost all the Steelers' remaining games are going to be in the division. So I don't know. I'm not willing to say that the division is theirs. I don't have faith in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can only win one kind of game for the Steelers, and it's a clunky game like we just saw, where it's close. He makes a couple of big throws down the field. Maybe he makes a play with his legs, but like he's not winning you any shootouts. So this is exactly the kind of game that Russell Wilson has to have in order to win. And he did. And it's not the first time this year he's won without scoring an offensive touchdown.
How many Super Bowl titles would the Steelers have if they just had a above average, a good, not great quarterback over the last 5 years? This defense has been this good for years now, pretty much since TJ Watt emerged. They have not had a quarterback. Russell Wilson is the best quarterback they've had since Big Ben retired. I would personally say Russell Wilson now is slightly better than Ben Roethlisberger in the last year or two of his career. Ben Roethlisberger in the last year or two of his career was extremely, extremely limited. Russell Wilson at least has some escapability and can have a deep ball throw. Big Ben was not capable of doing that, even though, he had a 4,000-yard season and things like that. But this is a team that could win the Super Bowl with a not very good quarterback. I mean, that's what Russell Wilson is now. How many Super Bowls would they can you imagine the difference in narrative that the NFL would have if the Steelers had a halfway decent quarterback over the last 5 years? They have likely knocked off the Chiefs in at least one of those Super Bowl years. And we're talking about one of the best rivalries ever in the playoffs, because you're going to have the Chiefs and the Steelers going at it every single year. That's what we might get for a year or two here with just Russell Wilson of all people.
Hey, if my grandmother had wheels, she'd be the bicycle. They didn't. And so this is where we are, but looking good so far for the Steelers right now. Let's go to the NFC North. I thought the Bears were going to pull off the upset of the day. I don't know how they did it. I was stunned that the game was as close as it is. But for the second straight week, Levin, we have a game-winning field goal attempt blocked on the final play of the game, and the Green Bay Packers escape Soldier Field with a 20-19 win.
I don't know how to take this game. Are the Bears improving, or are the Packers just that bad? That's my question in this game. The Packers played like crap. They had a very late, long touchdown throw, and that saved them. And like you said, it still took a missed field goal to win the game at the end. And the Bears have been terrible this year. They have been, I would say, in the bottom 5 of teams in the NFL this season. And the Packers almost lost to them and probably should have lost to them. So are the Packers really that bad? I think they are.
Well, they're 7-3 on the year. Bill Parcells says your record is what it is, or you are what your record says you are. 7-3 is 7-3. Now, I'm sure that, they would like for things to improve, but you still have a Jordan Love who's been banged up this year, who's, first of all, he's still inexperienced. He's been banged up this year. I still think he's trying to, get back into rhythm a little bit. And it was division game on the road. What do we always talk about with the Niners, right? You got to win your clunkers. This is a clunker for the Packers, but they won it.
Yeah. That is what the Niners are incapable of doing this season, is winning a clunker. So, yes, there is some credit to be given there, but I guess we'll see this next week what the Packers really are.
Well, we'll see, because they're going to play the 49ers, who don't win their clunkers, including yesterday, 11, where once again, in an NFC West game, the 49ers had a lead on a division opponent with 2 minutes to go in the game and lost as Seattle drives 80 yards and gets a touchdown on the Geno Smith scramble. And really, I mean, it's not official yet, but it pretty much sunk the 49ers playoff hopes.
Not only that, but I think it was the nail in the coffin of this rendition of the 49ers. It's got to be redone. It is time. I think you're seeing cracks. I think at this point, it definitely indicates that, Debo getting into it with one of his teammates the previous week was a sign that this team's not unified. This team's not focused. This team's not going to get it. Kyle Shanahan said today, the team is really angry and they just can't wait to get to Green Bay and fix it. Yeah, you said that after the Rams game. You said that after the Cardinals game. You said that after the Kansas City game. At some point, it's just a team that doesn't have enough fight in them.
I don't want to hear now I'm really mad.
Yeah.
Feel free to do that before you get to 5-5 and lose a third division game. Did you see the little bit of controversy that came out about this game?
Yeah, the timeout that everybody knew was a back-to-back. Like, how is that ever allowed to be happening?
So for anyone that doesn't know, in case you weren't watching the 49ers game, the score is 17-13 Niners. There's 2 minutes and 45 seconds left. The Niners just got stopped on 3rd and 11. It's 4th and 6. Seattle calls a timeout. Niners bring the punt team on. They go to punt the ball. The ball is snapped, but a referee runs over from the Seattle sideline and stops the play. And it's like, all right, well, wait, did Seattle call timeout? Because it's illegal to call 2 timeouts in a row. You can't do it. And nothing happened. They just basically said do-over, and the Niners punted the ball, and we know how the game turned out. Well, Mike Pereira, former head of officials, was on KNBR in San Francisco and said he confirmed that a coach for the Seahawks called timeout. Now, in the rule book, it says if a team calls timeout that they don't have, the refs are supposed to ignore it. But if the refs don't ignore it and stop the game, that is an automatic 5-yard penalty. So the 49ers, instead of having a 4th and 6 at the Seattle 42-yard line, should have had a 4th and 1 at the Seattle 37-yard line. Couple of things there. Number one, replay assist in New York could have assisted on that call, and they didn't, which to me means the officials were covering their own screw up and nobody wanted to call anybody out. That's what it means to me. But the more important thing, Levin, is 4th and 1 at the 37-yard line. That's a 55-yard field goal that the Niners could have tried that, if good, would have made it a 7-yard game, a 7-point game, or maybe the Niners go for it. Maybe Brock Purdy lines up for a quarterback sneak and they go for it and they keep the ball and they keep the clock, and who knows how that game turns out.
Yeah, there's absolutely no excuse for this. Whoever was in charge in New York, this is what drives me nuts. Have transparency. Whoever was in charge in New York, name them, call them out and say it's not allowed. That person will not be in charge next week. The referees, they miss a week. I know they have a union, so it's not allowed. But that's what should be happening. If you have a clear cut, you ignored the rule book on purpose with Kyle Shanahan yelling at you saying, I don't know if you saw that, but I saw it live. He was behind the ref and you can see that's their second time out. You can see him scream that. Yeah, he knew. So they are purposely ignoring the rule book. That cannot be tolerated. And that referee, the head referee, or the sideline ref, the one that heard it and stopped the game, should not be allowed to ref the next week. And they should be publicly admonished. Like, have some transparency. And I think that would go a long way with fans moving on and forgiving these things rather than making them a talking point. And the whole ironic thing to it is that I think they ignored it because they didn't want to be the ones that decided the game. But by ignoring it, you did decide the game.
Well, it doesn't decide the game, but it's certainly, it changes things drastically. And look, for the record, the Seahawks won. Credit to them because they handled their business and the 49ers did not. But this does change things in a major way. 4th and 1 at the 37-yard line. It would have been fascinating, Levin. Does Kyle Shanahan bring out Jake Moody, who missed 3 field goals the week before, to try a 55-yarder? Or does he just go for it? And maybe he doesn't. And we are criticizing Kyle Shanahan for doing, it changes things in a major material way. And I don't mean to take away from the Seahawks victory, but this is a big whiff because this isn't a subjective thing. It's literally in the rules. It's spelled out expressly what is supposed to happen and what happens if the refs screw up and grant a timeout that shouldn't be granted. It's all explicit. It's not a judgment call. It's not subjective. It is objective. It's a bad, bad miss by the officials.
And to me, I go for it on that 4th down. I know you would because you go for it on almost every 4th down.
Of course I would. Absolutely.
But on 4th and 1, okay, worst case scenario, the 49ers don't get it. The other team gets the ball on their own 38 and they need a touchdown to win still. So, it's, they got 18 extra yards of field position from what ended up happening with the punt.
Right.
You absolutely go for it. But it's inexcusable. Now, I'm just gonna say it wouldn't have mattered because the Niners aren't a real team this year.
Well, they certainly haven't been playing like it through the first 10 weeks. That's for sure. And there's no guarantee that even if they go for it, that they get it. And I'm not saying that they would have gotten it, but I'm just saying it changes things it makes the ending of that game vastly, vastly different. But credit to the Seahawks because they won.
Real quick, I know we're going to have plenty of time to talk Niners this week, but did you see Baldy's breakdown?
Yeah, the 49ers forgot how to run block at all levels yesterday. It's comically bad.
It is a complete and utter lack of focus by this team. That's all it is. They are not serious.
Well, let's get to a serious team who had a serious victory yesterday. The Detroit Lions. Absolutely. They literally, I'm going to say this out loud, and it's a true fact. They handed the Jaguars the worst loss in franchise history. And this is the Jaguars we're talking about, who have been a punching bag for a long time. 52-6. Levin, welcome to the end of the Doug Peterson era.
It's not if Ben Johnson is handed a blank check. It's how many blank checks is he handed this offseason. Here's some things. One, the 645 yards they gained, 9th all time. 7th all time if you eliminate overtime games.
Say that out. 645 yards.
They passed for almost 450 and still ran for 196 yards. Insane. But there's other things. All right. They're on an 8-game win streak. They are averaging more than 36 points per game over those 8 games. That's half a season. 36 points per game.
Ooh.
If you drop it to after their bye week, you have the last 6 games, that average points per game goes up to almost 39 points per game. But there's also another thing. In that 8-game win streak, their average margin of victory is more than 19 points. So it's not just the offense. They're absolutely destroying teams.
It's like that Detroit took all the suffering that they've endured over the last 35 years, and now they're just inflicting pain on everybody. I'm just going to read real quick the drives for the Lions in this game. Touchdown, 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 touchdown. That was the first half. Second half, touchdown, 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 field goal, game over. They scored on every drive except one, and they scored touchdowns. This is a demolition. And we're getting to the point now with the way that they are blowing people out. If they don't win the Super Bowl, it'll be a disappointment, which it sounds weird to say because we're talking about the Lions, but they are crushing people in a league that is designed to be a 1-score game every week. You just pointed out they're blowing teams out by 3 scores.
I'll just say it. The Detroit Lions and Ben Johnson stole Kyle Shanahan's mojo. This is Austin Powers #1 over again. His mojo has been stolen. This is what the Niners were last year. They absolutely destroyed teams. They're winning by double digits every single week. That's what the Lions are this year. They are 9-1. They are peaking still. Like this week was their best week of the season. They are still improving. 52-6. They somehow lost Aiden Hutchinson, who at the time of his injury was probably the leader for Defensive Player of the Year, and their defense has improved since he went down. They are something that still surprises me. Like, I knew they were going to be good. I thought the Hutchinson injury would matter. I did not think they would be this good. And quite frankly, I still have a hard time believing that Jared freaking Goff is leading an offense that's going to be one of the historically great offenses if they keep up the pace that they're on.
Goff dropped 412 yards, 24 of 29 in the game, and 4 touchdowns. They are an absolute buzzsaw right now. And right now in the NFC, it's like, who's going to beat them? It would be really shocking if they weren't the #1 seed and make a long run in the playoffs. By the way, Detroit is not going to be a fun place to have to go and play in the playoffs for any NFC team. Staying in that division now, Vikings get the 23-13 win over the Titans. What do we think of the Minnesota Vikings? Because early in the year, they looked so good and so well coached. And now these past couple weeks now, they've won 3 straight, to be fair, but they haven't exactly looked like world beaters.
They are the Kansas City Chiefs of the NFC without the 3 Super Bowls of history allowing you to excuse the poor play. They are winning games. They are 1 game behind Detroit for the number 1 seed, but they do not look good. They're looking good enough to win games, but they are not looking like a team that's for real. And I do think that you don't have to take them all that seriously. I do not think they have a deep playoff run in them.
I agree. I think that this team is good enough to win in the regular season. They've had a lot of things go their way. Sam Darnold threw the ball away on the 3rd damn snap of the game. Like he threw the ball away on a toss. He was picked off 5 times in his last 2 games before Sunday. He did not have an interception on Sunday. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. But I think that the longer this season has gone on, the more Sam Darnold has looked like the Sam Darnold that we have come to expect. The Vikings are a good team. They are well coached, but I don't see them make like you put them up against Detroit, and I feel like Detroit would absolutely murder them.
I think you could put them up against half of the teams in the NFC, and I would go, they might lose that game. Like, there's not too many teams that I go, oh, the Vikings are definitely winning that game.
And I know I hear the Vikings fans, well, they played Detroit and it was 31-29. It was the last second game. I think Detroit's gotten even better since then, to be honest with you, because that was a few weeks ago. That was October. I think Detroit's even better now, which is crazy to say, but the Vikings do get the win. They are competing for a number 1 seed. And I will say this too, Minnesota is a terrible place to have to be on the road too. It's not easy to play in that stadium. It gets very, very loud. So if they got the number 1 seed, that would be a huge feather in their cap also. But I think it's pretty clear that's where the number 1 seed in the NFC is coming out of. I mean, I guess you could throw Philly in that mix too, but I feel like, I don't know. This is my bias is showing too with Philly.
Philly could make the Super Bowl. I think of the NFC teams to challenge Detroit, Philly is the one that's best suited. They have the talent that's capable of having a game that upsets Detroit. But there's not very many. It is definitely the Lions conference to lose. But I will say that the rest of the NFC is going, keep winning, Minnesota. Right. You can get the 1 seed and not Detroit.
The Eagles, by the way, are in LA to play the Rams, and they have to go to Baltimore to play the Ravens, then the Panthers, then the Steelers, and the Commanders, the Cowboys, and Giants. So some difficult games in there. Certainly all winnable for Philly. I don't want to slight them by any means, but they don't look like, I mean, Detroit they're shredding people. We will see. Next up, Raiders, Dolphins. The Raiders proving once again, never hire the interim head coach. Miami goes and gets the victory. Hooray, 2-0.
What do the Raiders do this offseason? I have no clue. They have no quarterback of the future, which pains me to say because Aiden O'Connell went to Purdue. But they have no quarterback of the future on the roster. They don't really have young stars rising ready to go other than Bowers.
Max Crosby.
Yeah, I forgot about Max Crosby because he's hurt right now. But like, what do? They are multiple years away, but at the same time, with their recent history of hiring and firing, they are definitely in the position of head coaches saying, I don't want to go there. So it's going to be really hard for them to get the top head coach candidate. They kind of have to, ironically, strike gold because the 49ers were in that scenario 7-8 years ago. Mm-hmm. And what they did is they allowed the head coach to pick his GM. And yes, they struck gold. You have extreme success where neither John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan have gotten jealous about the other one and ended up creating a feud within the building. Can you go out and is there a head coach that's going to be available this offseason that is capable of picking the right person as the GM? Is Davis willing to do that? Which is, I think, the biggest thing. I think it was pretty clear Jed York was willing to step aside with the 49ers. Is Davis willing to step aside and say, I want nothing to do with anything? I don't know, but I think they will be the team that, of all the teams that have an opening, coaches want to go to least.
6 straight losses by the Raiders. Nice little 2-game win streak for Miami. You beat the Rams, you beat the Raiders. They're 4-6 still. They're 2-3 at home, but nice showing for Miami. It looked like it was maybe going to spiral out of control for Mike McDaniel there. He gets back on track. Tua gets back on track. And I don't want to slight the Dolphins. It's just the AFC East is Buffalo's division to win. They're 9-2. Miami's next closest in that division at 4-6, not even over 500. But good job, Mike McDaniel. Good job, Dolphins.
It's the biggest, should have been a huge story that has just gotten ignored all of a sudden.
What?
Did you see what Tyreek Hill said about his wrist or hand injury after he got back 2 weeks ago?
That he surgery is discussed, but he's going to play through it.
The getting arrested in the beginning of the season hurt his hand, and it's been bothering him, and he's trying to play through it, but he needs surgery. Like that, if you remember, and I know it's been a while, a lot of things happen in the NFL where it's kind of gotten forgotten about, but he was pulled over prior to the game, got dragged out. Multiple of the Dolphins got arrested, and you can go to the police brutality. That stuff's still being sorted out, but they got physical with Tyreek Hill, and they actually did injure his hand. And now that he's back, they're suddenly winning again. Like, what is their season? How would their season have changed if that didn't happen?
Well, I think the quarterback, the concussion to Tua altered their season, but I'm sure that was part of it too. Tyreek hasn't been the player that was threatening the all-time single-season receiving yardage record. So I'm sure both things contributed to that.
Yeah, having Tyreek be the all-pro wide receiver would have helped them weather Tua being gone.
Next up, Rams, Patriots. The Rams are, just keep trucking along. The Rams are good enough to beat the bad teams, and they did it Sunday. Wasn't pretty, but 28-22, they get the win.
The Rams are the team that play to their talent level. They lose to the good teams because they don't have enough talent. Their defense does not have a whole lot of talent on it. They beat the bad teams that they should beat. They are the opposite of the 49ers. And they are doing it like Puka Nacua can't go 10 plays without getting hurt.
He's banged up, man.
But they've been able to weather it and get through it. Like, this is a team that surprises me to a degree because I didn't think that they would be able to win as many games as they already have.
The Rams have won 4 of their past 5 games. They started the year 1-4. It's another team that could have folded up shop, but they get Cooper Kupp back. They get Puka Nacua back. All of a sudden, they look far, far more competent, which is to be expected. Those guys are good players. Sean McVay knows how to coach, man. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but they're going to give it they're not going to be a pushover. They had every chance. Remember, they were talking about they were calling teams to take Cooper Kupp. And now here they are, all these weeks later, back at 500.
Yeah, if they can get in the playoffs, I mean, when you have a really good quarterback, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm.
The Joe Flacco Ravens Super Bowl is the prime example of that. You have a good but not great quarterback who caught magic, sold his soul for a single playoff run. That could happen. I mean, Matt Stafford is certainly good enough that if they make the playoffs, he could just go, get on fire and take over games and end up getting them to the Super Bowl.
By the way, congratulations, Matt Stafford. If I have this stat right, he moved into 10th all time on the all-time touchdown list because he had 4 touchdowns yesterday. He passed Eli Manning for 10th all time.
Yeah, those are statistics that used to mean a lot more back in the day, but passing has become a thing that getting in the top 10 doesn't mean a whole lot anymore.
Doesn't mean as much as it used to, but still, congratulations, Matthew Stafford. You've had to endure a lot of crap and a lot of pain in your career. Next up, Saints all over the Browns, 35-14. The Browns are going to Browns. Taysom Hill had 3 touchdowns. The Saints are just, they're just there. They're just like this spare team.
They're not going to be there next year because all of those players will be gone with their cap situation.
Yeah, their cap situation's a mess. Like, they're just nowhere. They're playing games. They're no threat to win the division. They're no threat to win the Super Bowl. They're just there.
And meanwhile, the Browns are not there already.
Well, talk about it. I mean, the Saints have a hopeless situation. The Browns is even worse because they can't do anything with that Deshaun Watson deal. It's unmovable, get out of a bull. It's just a complete disaster. And yes, get out of a bull is a word.
Yeah. That is one of the coaches. If they move on from Stefanski this offseason, he's, I would say, the one that gets a head coaching job again right away. Yeah, because I think a lot of people view that situation as, well, they screwed him by sticking him with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it completely hasn't worked out. And I think everybody thinks that the owner's like, I'm paying this guy this guaranteed contract. You have to play him. Now he's hurt, so it's a little different. But I think that he was put in a bad spot. I would agree with you. And then the last game of the week, the Indianapolis Colts bench Joe Flacco. They bring back Anthony Richardson, and ho-hum, the Jets continue to be a complete disaster. Colts get the 28-27 win after an Anthony Richardson 4-yard touchdown run with 46 seconds to go.
Is it the start of Anthony Richardson developing into the new Josh Allen? No, probably not. But it was a good game.
20 of 30 for Richardson, 272, 1 touchdown through the air, 10 carries for 32 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He's a weapon at the goal line, man. He's so big. He can move, and they use him to the fullest extent, as they should. When you have a weapon, you should absolutely use it. And they never should have benched him. They never should have benched him. For Joe Flacco, his time is over. He's had his career. Never should have benched him. Let the kid play. All this year is about is development for Anthony Richardson for the Colts. That's it. So who cares if you lose games? Your franchise will be better in the long run. And by the way, they're only 5-6 on the year. It's not like they're, have 1 win on the season.
I won't go there. I don't know. Every player is different. Richardson was 100% floundering before. Getting 2 weeks to step back, and it's not, I got to get the game prep. I got to be ready for the game because you're the starter and you're taking all the reps, and you can't do as much self-improvement. You can't take a step back and go, oh, wow, I was doing that wrong. I need to do this instead. That's hard to do when you're having to constantly prep for the next opponent. Getting those 2 weeks could have been the reset that fixes him, because he was kind of lighting the league on fire when he came out as a rookie, and then he ended up getting hurt. So is that the reset he needed to get back to just letting his athleticism show? Maybe. So I'm not willing to say that he should have never been benched, because he was crumbling. He was getting worse every single week before he got benched.
Yeah, I don't know that the benching is the thing that did it. I think playing the Jets helps. First and foremost, they're a complete dumpster fire. Robert Saleh just has to be sitting back somewhere, smoking a cigar, just saying thank you for the money. I guess technically Saleh is working with the Packers now, so he's not sitting around doing nothing. But like, the Jets defense looks worse since Robert Saleh is gone. Their whole franchise is just a rudderless mess.
Talk about an owner that's going to have a hard time convincing somebody to come.
Well, he's probably going to be the ambassador to Ireland again, right? Wasn't he? Because last time Trump was in office, Woody Johnson was the ambassador to Ireland.
That is true, but I think it is abundantly clear that he jumped the gun on that firing.
Mm-hmm.
I listened to Rich Eisen's show during that week, and he was just throwing it out there. He didn't have any proof, but he was theorizing that Woody Johnson has a ton of friends in Great Britain, right? They were playing a game over in Europe. Woody Johnson, they know for a fact, had tons and tons of people brought in to watch that game. He had all his friends there, and they got embarrassed, and he shockingly fired the coach the next morning. So it certainly looks like an owner that threw a hissy fit and acted like it didn't have impulse control, put it that way.
Yeah, that's a well-run organization there, isn't it? That's what we're doing. Oh my God. No wonder the Jets have not won a Super Bowl since 1968, since Super Bowl III. It's a feature, not a bug. But good on the Colts. You get the win. Your young quarterback plays well. You should feel good. Let me just take a quick glance at the AFC South. So the Texans are 6-4. They're currently playing on Monday Night Football. They're up 14-7 on the Cowboys. Then the Colts are next at 5-6. Then Tennessee and Jacksonville are 2-8 and 2-9 respectively. It's not out of the realm of possibility that the Colts catch the Texans, but it's going to take a little work, and it's going to take a little help from Houston.
I don't think it will happen because I think Houston's too good. But that is definitely a division that one of them could end up winning at like 9-8. Be the division winner that gets a home game that everybody's going, that is ridiculous. You don't deserve to have a home game, which I don't understand why they can't make this rule. And I'm getting on my pulpit right now to preach. But pass a rule that if there is a division winner who has a worse record than the wild card team they are to play, the wild card team gets the home game. If their records are tied, the tiebreaker goes to the division winner. But there's zero reason that, say, a 9-8 division winner gets to host a 10-7 or even an 11-6 wild card team. That's a very simple thing to do to make it more equitable. That, hey, yes, that's the wild card team, but this division winner has no business getting a home playoff game.
I think it's because the owner, if the owner wants credit for winning his division and they get the home playoff game, they get the money, right? I don't know. I can't answer. I agree with you, but they're not going to change it. It's been a thing now for multiple years, and it sucks because home field does matter. And like these NFL playoff games are one game scenarios where God knows anything can happen. So you want every advantage you could get. But we'll see what happens in the AFC South. That is it for the Week 11 recap. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network wherever you get your audio podcasts. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Click that bell to get notified when we're live. We do the NFL show on every single Monday. Not bad by us. We made it through in less than 50 minutes today.
Well, I think there was only a couple games that were like, ooh, this is a really good game. A lot of them were, wow, this is a big blowout, or just teams that don't matter.
No, it's a testament to our skill and professionalism. What are you talking about?
Yes.
Completely
right. That. My creativeness of leading this network.
I'm leading this network. All right. Goodbye, everybody. Enjoy Monday Night Football.